You're listening to the Deadly Uncle Podcast,
a safe space for Deadly Uncle conversations.
Okay, welcome to the Deadly Uncle Podcast. Today's episode, we have Adrian Pruden with us. Adrian works in logistics, but he also sits on the board of an organization in Airdrie, Alberta called Circle Connections for Reconciliation, and they do great work in the community, bringing in elders and that type of thing to have conversations with Indigenous and non-Indigenous people alike. I said those two words without even stuttering. Woo! We're here. Welcome, Adrian. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you inviting me, and happy to sit in with you today.
Well, hello. It's very nice to meet you as well. This is season 2 of the Deadly Uncle Podcast. Awesome to have you here today.
Yeah, no, it's a fun opportunity to sit down with you guys. Trent's actually helped me out with a lot of stuff for promoting Circle Connections and some of the events that we've done, so I'm happy to repay the kindness he's given me.
Well, I was hoping I wasn't going to cash in a favor that quick. No,
You're done now.
Why don't we start with you giving us just a little bit of your background, Adrian? Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your family lineage, that type of thing.
Full-on origin story.
Yes, let's start from birth. No.
Yeah, great grandfather.
Picture it.
Well, I'm originally from Manitoba. My father, Métis. My father, actually, the original Pruden family goes back to 17, whatever. Married into some swampy Crees in northern Manitoba, and then headed west to with HBC. Okay. So John Peter Pruden, the patriarch of the family, had come over as a apprentice originally, and ultimately worked his way up to chief factor. It was actually credited with naming the city of Edmonton. Oh, cool. And after Fort Edmonton, he worked his way down to what was Acton House at the time, which ultimately became Rocky Mountain House, and then started working his way back to Red River after that. And so my family have. My father and grandparents beyond are from the Alonza, Kinnesota region, which is smack dab in the middle of Ebb and Flow First Nation, which is the Anishinaabe, and Sandy Bay First Nation, which is Ojibwe. Yeah. And my mother's side of the family come from Scottish and Swedish origin. So, they hooked up at the old Plywood Palace in Kinnesota. And, moved to Manitoba shortly thereafter. My mom and dad are both from towns of 400 people, roughly. And obviously...
related to everybody in
pretty
the town.
Pretty much, yeah.
Knew everybody, yeah.
Yeah, so First Nations, Métis, and then a bunch of Ukrainians. And so kind of a good melting pot, you know. It was,
good feasts.
Good feasts, very good feasts. Pierogies everywhere you go.
Right.
As a matter of fact, my sister was the Alonza, Manitoba pierogi princess one year. So. Yeah. But they moved to Winnipeg shortly after I was born, about 4 or 5 years old. And the rest of my siblings, I got a younger brother and a younger sister. And we had an awesome upbringing in Winnipeg and St. James, West Side. So, and grew up, exactly, West Side. We grew up with lots of love. You know, things weren't, they tight growing up, and, you know, mom and dad always provided and always made sure everything was there, never missed a meal, everything was good. They did everything in their power to help put all us kids through sport, which was great. Early days, we lived about 3 blocks down the street from the Downs Motor Inn, which was a country music mecca back in the 70s. And it was run by Ma Henning. And so we had so many, in our family, basically, you're on my mother's side, there's generations of nurses. On my father's side, there's musicians. Okay. So we grew up in a rich culture of music, and of course with that came the parties after the bar closed.
Well, I was going to say your mom's family could heal everybody up after the parties.
Exactly. So my earliest memories were every time mom and dad we'd have a babysitter watching me and my siblings, and then after the bar would close, you would be woken up, and the guitars and the fiddles or everything out, or out in full display, and the kids would be sitting on the stairs just listening until they'd hear us making noise.
I wrote a
and then
song
crack.
about that, dude. Called At the Top of the Stairs.
Well, that's perfect. Like,
At the top of the stairs.
That was exactly it, and of course, being young, finally falling asleep, you'd wake up in the next morning stepping over bodies and going down,
Yeah.
strumming the guitar and listen, and you'd get yelled at. But it was it was a lot of fun. But we had Lawrence Teddy Boy Hoole, Jimmy Flatt, Harvey Henry.
Well, you must know Dean Malcolm then, if you know all those other dudes.
He's my
Dean's
cousin.
Really?
Yes.
I played gigs with Dean. He's a friend of mine.
I know. I've known Dean for a lot of years. Actually, I did
awesome.
fiddle lessons with Dean.
Well, I
and
was
my
going to
daughter,
say
so
that you said your family's from Evanflow. I'm like, well, I know somebody from Evanflow, Dean Malcolm.
Yeah. So know Dean very, very well. And of course, again, that's the whole family. The Malcolm family is just the
Teddy Boy
musical
is his
gods.
uncle, right?
Yeah,
and I've jammed with Harvey Henry, the late Harvey Henry. But
yeah. Harvey is was at our house all the time. So and then when he was here in Alberta, I'd go out and see him all the time. And his son Joe is doing some amazing stuff out on the East Coast. I don't know if you've checked him out, Joe.
No,
you should look him up. Sounds just like Harvey.
Oh, okay.
His voice is it's amazing.
I remember the seeing Harvey at the North 40.
Yeah.
All the time back in the 90s when I was here.
Yeah, and he used to run those jams too down at Ranchman's. And, a few other places all over. But funny story. My dad and my uncle, my grandmother passed away before I was born, and my dad and his brother had ended up kind of pseudo moving in with a family, close family friends, which are basically our family now. But he was telling me the story one time where he was staying. I think it was in Bacon Ridge with Teddy Boy, and there was like 8 of them in a bed. He said they were all just kind of lying like sardines in his bed. Teddy Boy's got his fiddle over, and he's just fiddling over top of the shoulder, doing it really quiet, so he wasn't getting in trouble with lots of stories and lots
Real
of
dedication.
music. Oh yeah, and the best part, the unfortunate part about it is that my parents had the old 8-tracks going, so they would always record these parties because the music was the musicians that came in were amazing. And we had a flood in Winnipeg, and they lost all the tapes. But that stuff was
that's priceless
magical.
stuff.
It was.
Yeah, you're recording an album with some old tracks.
Yeah, like my dad used to write songs, and he had a bunch of cassette tapes. And actually, what I had written the grant for was to finish some of these songs with my dad. But then I can all of a sudden hear myself. Wow. It's because you're moving the... Okay, never mind. And my dad passed away in April, but I still got the grant, and my brother and I produced 10 songs that he had written, and I finished off 5 of them. But
nice.
So we did that project. Starting in September, we just wrapped it up. But I grew up in a similar way as you. My dad was a musician. That's all he did his whole life, so we had music coming through the house my whole childhood. After he'd be done his gig, people would come over, they'd be around the kitchen table and play until 8 in the morning or whatever, That's why I said we used to live in this townhouse, and there'd be 4 steps down to a landing and then 8 steps down, so we'd sit up just before where they couldn't see us, me and my sister, and we'd be listening, and then finally they'd call me down because he'd know I'd be there or whatever, and then I could listen to them play for a little bit, and then get sent back to bed.
Yeah.
I totally remember the same experience, in my house, And so, I'm wondering, what are you a musician? Are you a jigger? Did you get into any of those things?
Well, I play some instruments. I don't. The unfortunate thing is I've been so busy, I haven't really had a chance to pick them up much lately. Like my calluses are gone. So it's it's a rough day when that's the scenario. But I play guitar, dabble a little bit, fiddle, and
nice.
As you have to as a Métis, it's kind of in your bones. So it's funny. Like I got up this morning, jumped in the shower to get ready to come here, and my wife bought this, what do you call those little cushy ball, like a loofah or something?
Put soap on and you scrub yourself.
Yeah, so
they're real manly.
I know, they're really
What's that
great.
thing called that you...
Exactly. It's got this body wash, but I have this shampoo that's got it's caffeine and menthol.
Yeah.
It literally makes your scalp tingle, but I ended up putting that stuff on the loofah, and I'm like, holy crap, I jumped out of the shower, did a quick round dance, and then a quick Red River jig, and it was...
And it was gone.
Yeah, it was gone.
man,
But yeah, no. So my dad plays. All my siblings play. More keyboards on my brother and sister's side, and then they try to sing. But
They try to sing.
I say that because I know they're gonna watch this at some point.
I'm not gonna even go there. I fight with my siblings as well. I used to tell my sister she would never sing in public. I said, "Oh, she just sings in her head."
But yeah, similar deal. We get back home. I usually head home at least twice a year. Go back in the summer for a couple of weeks. Always home for Christmas. And the guitars are typically coming out at some stage of the trip. And again, late nights. And we'll see. We're good. We kind of shut her down by 4, so it's not
Yeah.
You
Just
matured
we're not
a
as
little.
hardcore as the previous generation.
Yeah, just
I guess,
before the sun comes
Exactly.
up, right? Yeah. So what type of work did you get into kind of growing up where you did? What was your first experience with work?
Well, I actually started. Funny thing, the first job I actually ever had, of course, like most people, it'd be paper route. But I got into doing target marking for a gun range for a while.
Oh, wow.
Dabbled around with the pizza delivery kind of thing and all that, and then really kind of got out of school. Wasn't really sure what I was going to do, and just kind of bouncing around little jobs here and there. And my aunt actually was working for the government and was shipping some grain over to Asia. And as it turned out, unlucky for them, but lucky for me, the boat had to jettison a bunch of the containers, which happened to be the grain. So she ended up talking to this company, and I don't know if they were just trying to smooth things over, but they said, "Hey, we're looking for someone on a part-time basis. Are you aware of anyone?" So she put my name forward. I went and applied, and ended up getting the job.
Put this down.
So I worked for them on a 6-month term basis. And at the end of my term, I was kind of debating whether I wanted to do it any longer or whatnot. And they offered me 2 jobs in Africa and a job in Calgary. So I was like, well,
I'm not ready for 2 jobs.
exactly, right? So I'd never really, outside of a few border crossings, hadn't really, and a trip to Disneyland, hadn't really been out traveling at all. And things weren't the greatest for a skinny little, back then, skinny little kid from Manitoba to be going to Africa. Apartheid was going on and lots. And of course, Calgary's a lot shorter drive home. So I ended up taking the Calgary position. I've been out here ever since. They actually, they flew me out in December, and I think it was -30 in Winnipeg. And 4 or 5 feet of snow. I got out here, it was 21 degrees, and my boss was mowing his lawn and planting flowers. And I said, I am never leaving this place. See you later, Winnipeg. And I've been here ever since. Of course, we haven't had weather like that since that day. We had some pretty nice weather this year, but it was good. So yeah, I did some time bouncing back and forth between Calgary and Edmonton. And kind of settled in Edmonton or Calgary now for since 2000, 99, 2000, somewhere around there.
Wow, you've been here a long time.
Yeah, more time here in Alberta now than I was in Manitoba. So
Now you're a transplanted Albertan.
Pretty much.
I think a lot of people are, like, even Saskatchewan.
Well, yeah, like I was born in
Manitoba,
Regina.
yeah, BC, all over the place.
I was always hard pressed to find anybody that was actually born here when I first moved here.
Yeah. My mom was.
So there.
I found one for you right there.
Yeah,
But I ended up working. I had my brother and sister actually moved out here, lived with me for a while. Had my little nephew at the time. He's now 30, but
wow.
living with me as well. I met my wife out here, and we've got 2 girls and a boy, and just living in Airdrie and bouncing around.
Okay, so what is your job right now? Like, just the title. You're the vice president of logistics.
I'm the vice president of a company called Pentagon Freight Services, and that company is an international freight forwarding company. So they started in the UK in 1974, celebrating our 50th year this year. And so we started with them in 2000. It was myself, our president, and his wife, who's our CEO, really the heart behind the company.
Did you hear that?
The one that makes it all happen.
Did
The
you
one
hear
that
that?
keeps us. The one that keeps us all in line.
The one that pays me?
Yeah. Yeah, so we've grown here in Canada since 2000. We're up to about 17, 18 staff now between Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver.
Yeah.
And our business is primarily handling oil and gas, energy and mining equipment, transport, international import, export for those industries. And we're in kind of layman terms, we're kind of like a travel agent.
Okay.
For oil
For
and gas
freight.
equipment, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we'll arrange everything from pickup in wherever to destination, A to Z, basically everything in between. Handling customs clearance through different agents, the trucking, the air freight, the ocean, whatever it's going to be, and we do everything. Kind of make it as easy as possible for our clientele. Give us a commercial invoice, and we take care of everything else. So it's kind of really kind of hands-on, full, and it's an interesting thing, especially over the last few years. Ahead of not even counting COVID. I mean, we had landslides in BC that shut down the highways. We've got the Russia-Ukraine war. We've got Panama canals closed down. There's the Red Sea issues that's going on. So there's all kinds of factors that are really challenging the supply chain right now, and I think everyone's seeing it with gas prices, and of course not being able to get certain things in from your Amazon gifts and that kind of stuff here.
That's what irks most people.
Yeah.
If they can't get their $200 Amazon guitars.
They're like,
right.
I have one here.
That's why I said that. Now, I was going to ask you something, Adrian. This is totally on the topic of what you're doing because it's something that just triggered a memory. Somebody once said to me that Calgary and Edmonton would one day be the biggest inland ports in the world. Now, what does that mean from a logistics standpoint?
Well, there's been some battles on that because Winnipeg and Regina are trying to vie for that title too, because especially Winnipeg being center of the country, right? But I mean, the supply chain, just the amount of business manufacturing that's taking place here, and the expertise, certainly in the oil and gas and energy sectors. Yeah. Our expertise, our manufacturing, the products that we build are lights out, like top of the line for the world. Yeah. So the benefit that a lot of overseas companies see is the currency. The Canadian dollar is fairly low in comparison to obviously the U.S. dollar, the euro, etc. So when companies are looking to buy and replace or upgrade equipment, they're buying superior equipment out of Canada, and they're doing it for a lot less money than they would be paying to buy local. So that was kind of a real big spike for the economy here in Alberta back a number of years ago. And we saw a massive amount of exports going out of the country because of that. Now, in the last, certainly since COVID, we kind of expected the same thing to happen where, again, the Canadian dollar is kind of, 70 cents or whatever it is. So we would have thought international exports would have been exploding. They're doing all right, but they're not what they once were. So it really makes you wonder if countries are starting to manufacture in their own
that's
backyards.
What I was
versus,
maybe they're deciding that it makes more sense to keep those jobs in their own areas or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And there's always imports out of China, which are even far cheaper. But again, the quality of the goods are not quite as on par as what they would be out of Canada. But even that's starting to improve too. So it's. It's a fine balance right now.
Yeah, it must be really interesting to be involved in like the world economy like that, right? Like you have to have a better knowledge than say me and Curt do.
Yeah,
everything
we don't have
in
to
mind.
Deal with other markets. Everything in mind. Yeah, we're just worried about, hey, where are we going next?
Are we going to upload that song?
Yeah, there's a fair amount of stuff to keep an eye on, and of course I'm finance. It's not my forte or anything I really enjoy doing, but there's stuff like that you got to be cognizant of and take into account. So it's
How has business changed, and what do you see different when it comes to doing business after COVID and stuff?
Well, there's been a fair amount of challenges getting employees, to be quite bluntly honest. We're not seeing as many people applying for some of these positions. We're seeing a lot of people from foreign countries apply for. We've got an ad up here, just put an ad out here. We're just in the process of hiring someone now that we put some ads out on Indeed, and we had 1,400 people apply for this job. And I think 1,100 of them were from out of country trying to get to Canada.
Oh, okay.
So, and then looking for people, especially to get experience, there's a certain number of trainee positions that are available. But in our position for our company, we're more of a everyone I've got on staff at our facility is 25 to 30 years experience. So we run very, very lean. We've got one trainee that's only been with us now for a few weeks, working out great so far, which is awesome. But again, it's kind of taking that time to run your day-to-day business and still have the time to train. So it's a bit of a challenge that way. So we've been kind of looking around for someone with the experience that, in that range of the rest of our staff, which is so difficult because you're either you're looking at someone that's unhappy at another company that maybe runs in a different circle than we do, because we're very specialized and very niche in the oil and gas environment. I'd say probably 90% of our competition are companies that do logistics all around. So they're shipping blue jeans, frozen chickens, you name it, PlayStations.
And you guys
and we're specifically oil and gas. So it's it's a tough market. It's one of those ones that to throw back to Manitoba, ebbs and flows.
Yeah, ups and downs.
See what I did there?
Yes, especially when you think about the old, when Fort McMurray was just going wild there. Yeah, ups and downs.
Yeah, like when we can talk about this all day. Like, remember when Fort McMurray first started? They only had the one highway in there. People were dying on that highway all the time. Musicians that I knew that were my dad's friends from Red Deer worked up there. 3 of them, I think, passed away on that highway back in those days in the 90s when they were going to work and coming back on the buses.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story, though. Yeah, we'll go off on a tangent there.
What's your time here?
Yeah. I'm like, okay, so we got to where you are now. You're here, you're working, you're doing this logistics thing, but you're also on the board of an organization called Circle Connections for Reconciliation. Yes. Can you give us maybe the background of how that group started and kind of your guys' mission statement and the work you're doing in the community in Airdrie?
Well, I've been involved with charity work for 30 years in different capacities. And right when COVID hit, a woman that I know who had met years prior with the Airdrie Food Bank, she'd retired and had gone into just keeping herself busy. She's a lifelong learner and a wonderful woman. She had gone on the Walk for Common Ground back in, I think it was 2018, 2017. I'm not 100% sure on the date on that. But she had joined a group that was walking basically from Edmonton, Red Deer through to Calgary. And she had joined the walk in around the Crossfield area and had walked with, I believe it was, and she'll kill me if I get this wrong, but I believe it was Dr. Patricia Makokis that she had originally had met.
Okay.
And they had some an interesting interaction with a landowner that was quite unfortunate. And that really kind of triggered her. She's an ally. Named Sue Methuen, and it really affected her deeply on what was going on with the way Indigenous people have been treated, and she saw that she felt she had to do something. So she had actually put a call out on Facebook, and just said, "Hey, I'm looking at getting a group together just to chat, to discuss, and see what we can do to help better bring awareness on truth and reconciliation." And we didn't really know where we were going at that point. So I just happened to be, at the time, I was the president of an Oilmen's Association in Airdrie and running a bunch of events. And I was kind of in between events, and I happened to come across this. And, of course, anything Indigenous related, there wasn't anything like that going on in Airdrie. So for someone to bring that up, for me, it immediately connected with me. So I said, yeah, I want to hear more on this.
Yeah.
So we ended up, I believe the very first, of course, it was right in the middle of COVID, so the very first meeting we had was over Zoom. We managed to get together for, I think, a coffee outside of City Hall and just get a photo snap there, and then that kind of sparked things. So started to steamroll from there, and we the whole premise is to bring Indigenous and non-Indigenous people together, and spread culture, truth and reconciliation, and really try to advance and promote what we can for the Indigenous in our city. And that's kind of started to expand beyond and into Calgary and, well, basically all of Treaty 7 and the Metis Nation. So I've been pretty involved with the Metis Nation for a number of years now as well. And, so we've got myself, Sue is our past, founder and past co-chair. I became a co-chair with her. She's just recently been replaced this year with Gretchen Riel, who is Kakwala from the West Coast. And we're an Indigenous-led group. We've got a number of Métis on the board as well. A couple of allies to keep us even. and yeah, we're doing what we can to help promote and really build awareness for all Indigenous. We officially became a society in 2022. We started in 2020, but officially got society status in 2022, and started figuring out, well, what are we going to do? So we've got Sue and Gretchen. Gretchen's a master. She's got an MBA in education. She is. Her and Sue are working on an education program for schools, businesses, etc. And that's in progress. We'll be releasing that at some point this year. It's been kind of a 2-year project that's been on the go, but we've been bouncing around between National Indigenous Peoples Day events, Truth and Reconciliation, just bringing whatever we can Indigenous to and highlighting it within Airdrie and surrounding area. We brought in New Blood for a production there in Airdrie at the Bird Church Theatre. We've just finished we started a series of elder talks where we invited elders from all throughout Treaty 7 and the Métis Nation, starting off with Lance Scout, Elder Lance Scout from the Kainai Nation. And we had John Sinclair. We've had
John Sinclair as well.
Yeah. Great guy.
John's
guy,
an elder from he worked with the Red Deer Native Friendship Society.
Yes.
My sister's the director there, so that's how I know John.
Yeah. So then we had George Pambrim, who is a Métis elder and veteran. Had him for National
and I had
Aboriginal
the opportunity to interview both of you on my radio show. So
Exactly.
George was a nice man as well to meet.
Awesome.
Yeah. We've had Philomene Stevens come in and do one from Stony Nakota. We've got who am I missing here? Well, and of course we just finished here in early February with Bruce and Deanna Starlight from Centena. Yeah. So and it's absolutely for me just to spend the time with the elders, and it's not even what they say in these elder talks is in itself so amazing, but to just sit down and chat before the event, after the event, leading up to the event, just to discuss things and hear some of the things that they share, it just blows my mind, and I'm so fortunate and lucky that I've been able to get this opportunity to do that and start building these relationships with these elders. It's invaluable to me. I mean, I've got so much to learn, and
we all do.
Exactly. It's and even just talking with the knowledge keepers that I know, that have been at it for years and years and years, and then seeing some elders say, well, you've got to learn this still and that, and it's like, wow, the amount of information and teachings that they have. There's got to be a faster way.
But and
it's
then
great.
The different belief systems that
100%.
are so close to each other.
Yeah.
The Northern Cree, the Blackfoot, the Stony Nakota, the Satina.
Yeah.
They all have different belief system, different medicine wheels. I know I was lucky enough to go to the Buffalo Jump in Lethbridge, where they had an elders gathering, and they had same thing. It was like what you're speaking about. about. They had elders speaking from all over Alberta, and that's what they said. If you're going to compare, us to like climbing a mountain to learning our culture, we're not to the mountain yet. We're still making our way to get to the mountain, to start learning, what our culture is, and, all those teachings. I'm so amazed by a lot of our elders, and it's nice that you guys are in Airdrie and you have such a vast population of different tribes, like the Stoney, the Satina, and the Blackfoot tribes as well.
There was one so just here this past September, there was a with the Starlights and Virgil and Philomene Stevens and a number of other elders. George Pamberam as well was involved. There was a art project. It's a Niethka Stoney grandmother that was placed at Nose Creek Park in Airdrie. So I was lucky enough to join them from a consultation standpoint with the artist. It was a big bronze deal. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. It's gorgeous though.
I saw pictures of it.
But walking through when we did the dedication on September 30th with the elders, Philomene Stevens had said, there's in this area, she gives a lot of stories. Again, it goes not just from what Stoney know as a stop off to head north to trade with Acton House, where my great grandfather was running that facility. She was telling us about the vegetation in that area, and we should be planting these flowers around the sculpture, which is underway in Airdrie for the spring. Okay. So, and the CP rail line that runs right smack dab through the middle of Airdrie is an original Métis cart path. And so there's so much history that you hear. And then when I hear my patriarch trading at Acton House with the Stonies, and now here I am 150 years later, forging a relationship with the Stonies, it's for me, it's heartwarming. It's kind of a circle, and it's really enjoyable.
Do you guys throw on events in Airdrie, like public events?
Yeah, we do.
I guess like you were speaking about the was it the theater that you?
Yeah, so we brought in the New Blood production, which is out of Siksika. It's in conjunction with, I believe, Strathmore High School, so they've got a lot of performers, dancers. With that production. So we actually brought that to Airdrie last September. We did a kind of a hybrid deal of our elder talk. So we actually had John Sinclair do the elder talk at the theater prior to the performance. So it worked out great. It was an awesome day. But so we do that, and we'll probably be doing something along the same lines for September 30th this year. Our big event that we're going to be holding is our National Indigenous Peoples Day event, which we invite all of Treaty 7 and the Metis Nation, and we kind of highlight whatever they want to do. We're guided by elders.
I'm available to play.
Yeah. I'll do a set.
We're gonna figure in where to slot you. So
you got to throw it out there,
100%.
You got to put a country set in there.
I mean, there is a strong connection to country music in the Métis community.
Hell yeah.
Even in the First Nations community.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It may not be traditional, but it's kind of.
Yeah. Hey, it's like beadwork and, like you say, Ukrainian people.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's different stories about us learning the beadwork from the Ukrainian people. And then even, like, if you go to my home as well in the Plains Cree, you're going to see cabbage rolls on the plates. You're going to see pierogies as well. So there's a huge influence between the two, and I like that we're discussing that, some of those positive traits that we have between the settlers and the Indigenous people.
Well, I mean, we have to acknowledge that the Métis people come from that, right? The crossing of two cultures, right?
Yeah,
so, I mean,
100%.
it's kind of something that's happened here since non-Indigenous people came here, right? So
well, it's funny you bring that up, because my when I first brought my wife home to meet the family, my dad was laying on the couch and kind of snoozing. And we walk in the door and go straight through the living room where he's laying on the couch, go to the kitchen. And my wife leans over and she goes, "Who's the Indian on the couch?" and my dad, without skipping a beat, he goes, the Indian's his father. She's like,
I thought
my
it was
mom
going to
loved
go
it.
the other way. I thought you were going to, somebody was going to say, who's the white girl?
We've heard both. I
Yeah,
think,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Especially since I come from a like my mom's non-Indigenous,
Yeah.
my dad, so I've heard it from both
Oh,
sides,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, of course, my mom coming from Swedish and Scottish heritage, fairly fair.
yeah,
My dad's very native,
Yeah.
and of course, I kind of a mix between the two. But my sister is extremely Indigenous looking. My brother gets a little bit of he gets the best
mixture.
tan.
I
out of
call
that.
myself off-white
Yeah, so we're
or eggshell.
Yeah.
What I was going to ask you about Adrian, this kind of strikes me, and I may be wrong about this, and this just might be my perception, but I always saw Airdrie as a community kind of like Red Deer, where there wasn't a lot of Indigenous people there. Like, other than you, the only other Indigenous person I know is his mom, who lives in Airdrie. So that's why I'm like, how is this your events? How is this work bringing the community together, and how has the non-Indigenous community accepted all these reconciliation events that you guys have been moving forward?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Through just working with the Metis Nation over the last several years, I've found that there's roughly about 1,000 Metis in Airdrie, which is one of the larger populations for what's now District 4, part of Region 3. But as far as First Nations go, there are a small population. We do see them come out to the events, which is great. Some of the interesting things is some of the older people that have been living in Airdrie for 30, 40 years, Indigenous people, they come out religiously. And we see a lot of people coming just to see one another, and then we're getting a fair amount of people from throughout Calgary, throughout all of Treaty 7 that come anytime there's, especially with our National Indigenous event. We've got people from Siksika, Sutena, Morley come out. It's great. So I think we're really starting to see some positive change and a lot more awareness in the city of Airdrie. We've been working very closely with the city of Airdrie to put on a lot of our events. They've been right there hand in hand with us. They actually created and have a culture and heritage division that we've got a couple of individuals that we've been working extremely closely with. They've been champions for city at City Hall for ourselves and for advancing Indigenous awareness within Airdrie. The fact that we've managed to get these statues put into place. Just last year we managed to get the Treaty 7 and Métis Nation flags raised at City Hall and in front of City Hall, so they're permanently flying now in Airdrie, which is great. One of the first, I think, not one of the first, well, probably one of the first or second anyway, in rural Alberta for central Alberta. So it's great that we're really kind of leading the charge in Airdrie, and a lot of other locations rurally are starting to follow us.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so why is this work important to you personally?
I think just, my father is one of the individuals that I guess had a kind of a rough upbringing, and it wasn't one that really kind of accepted or really embraced his Indigenous roots. Certainly when we moved to Winnipeg. So we had a bit of a challenge. He always used to say we're English. We're not Métis. We're not, whatever. But over the years, he's really kind of come around on that. And I mean, we've got family all through Manitoba, like hundreds and hundreds of family all through Manitoba. And we just really kind of, we're immersed in the culture and the dance, the Red River Jig, we got a cousin, Arnold Asham, who's a champion of the Red River Jig. He's got a Asham Stompers, runs a music festival out in Manitoba every year, travels the world promoting the Red River Jig and Métis culture. and we've lived through that through kitchen parties or just different events, and Folklorama in Winnipeg, you're around it, and so I didn't really see a lot of that in the area I'm in, and I missed it, to be bluntly honest. It just wasn't enough of it. So I've kind of over the course of the last 30 years, and this kind of leads me right back to the Downs Motor Inn and stepping over bodies at Mom and Dad's house. We kind of were raised throwing parties and events. And as I got older, celebrations. As I got older, I started doing that and building, and then seeing, well, hey, I can raise awareness for this, or I can raise funds for this group by doing this.
But I can put a hell of a party on it.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's how I kind of started doing that for not for this organization, but others. And I got experience doing that, and I was quite good at it. So when the circle came around, and I was looking at it, I'm like, this is something that I'm not. I want to do, and it just because it just hit me. And then the more I kind of got immersed in it, the more I started learning. The more interaction I had with elders, the more I got to witness. I just started kind of filling my cup, so to speak, and the passion just kept going and going. And just anything I can do to help promote First Nations, Indigenous, Métis, Inuit as well. I'm willing to look at and see what I can do to help make an impact and help better things.
Well, I gotta say, you're a pretty deadly uncle, Adrian.
Always wanted to be deadly.
Before we let you go, we're coming close to the end. I want to ask you one more question. Where do you see the organization Circle Connections for Reconciliation going in the next 5 years? Say, what's the future hold for that organization in Airdrie?
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the organization. We're starting to attract a great deal of attention, which is great. We're getting a bunch of businesses that are starting to take notice of what we're doing. We've managed to put some events into lunch and learns for businesses to help spread awareness. We are starting to garner some financial support, which helps us do bigger and better things. Obviously, for a volunteer organization, it runs on bodies and people that are passionate as our group is. One of the things that comes with that too are a lot of people that are not necessarily in it for the same reasons. So it's a challenge to kind of weed out and really get to know someone and where their heart is before we bring on too many people in decision-making scenarios, right? So at the end of the day, we're always going to be Indigenous-led and always be taking guidance from our elders, and really to kind of see where. I guess it really depends on the elders, and we'll come up with ideas and then bounce them off an elder and see what their input is. If they like it or they don't, or they think it should be done a different way, we're following that lead. So it's going to be interesting to see where we progress. One of the really cool things that I'm really looking forward to in the next few months here is for National Indigenous Peoples Day. Last year when we held the event, this will be our third event. Fourth event. We had Virgil and Philomene Stevens from Stoney Nakoda kind of lead us on the programs. We have teepees and trappers tents out. We've got fire pits. We've got the performances from all the various nations that are kind of amalgamated into equal time slots, so they can come and choose to do whatever they want to do. If it's a hoop dance or a grass dance, or they want to do drumming, singing, whatever they want to do, that's completely on them, and we follow their lead. Last year, Virgil and Philomene said, that's great. Thank you so much for letting us, kind of lead the charge this year. But this year, you need to move it to someone else. So Bruce and Deanna Starlight from Stina have graciously offered to help us out with that. So
that's awesome.
I'm set to sit down with them here, hopefully sometime this week, and kind of get the early planning stages going. But we'll have everyone from Treaty 7 involved, as well as the Métis Nation, and bigger and better things. Hopefully, more bodies involved and more awareness and really more celebration of our culture.
Was the June 21st event, was that an outdoor event?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, where is it?
Yeah, it's at Nose Creek Park, right
yes.
in the center of Airdrie. We have about 400 to 600 people typically show up for that event.
Yeah. The stage there with the water in the back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we had last year. They wanted to Virgil and Philomene wanted to have everything out on the grass adjacent to the stage, but of course with the Métis, we're little toe tappers and fiddlers, so we had to take the stage in the woods.
You just wanted to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, so we had Alex Kustruck come out and play fiddle for us,
right
which was great.
Alex is great.
Hot off playing for the Pope for that mission over in Rome, but at the time, it's great. So we're always looking to promote our musicians, our culture all around. So really excited and. Just can't wait to see where the next few years take us.
Where can our listeners find out information about everything that you're talking about here?
We have a website, which is www.circleconnectionsforreconciliation.com, and then we also have a Facebook page and a brand new Instagram page. My daughter just set it up for us, so because I'm too old to operate Instagram, I can only do Facebook.
Those younger ones,
right? So, she'll maybe bring us into TikTok and all the other whatever.
Yeah, as long as she does the work, because it's a lot
you got
of
that
right. All right, Adrian. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your time and your story, because time isn't free, but hopefully your story is.
Send you the bill.
The bill's coming in the mail, boy.
You're listening to the Deadly Uncle Podcast,
a safe space for Deadly Uncle conversations. Coming up on the Deadly Uncle Podcast.
Push that aside, and you learn from the guys that you think, well, these are the guys that are doing stuff. These are the guys that are successful. Even though they're traditional men, they have jobs, they're successful, they have homes, they have vehicles, they have families. They're bringing their checks home for their families, and this is how you do it. You got to work hard. You got to be consistent. Usually in those cases, when you're learning that way too, you become that leader also. People will always look to you to say, hey, can you help out with this, because you're pretty stable and